Welcome back to the Upper Transfer Show, the Transfer Weekly Show. We bring you on the upper tier on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Audio versions of the show are also available on Anchor. Joining me today, as always, my co-host of the Upper Transfer Show, Dean. Dean, how you doing, my man?
What's up?
It's fair to say this week it's been a kind of a weird week or 2 weeks in terms of transfers, where there's been not a lot of news coming through because a lot of the focus has been on obviously the ESL and the fallout from that and the protests and what happened on Sunday with the postponement of the game and everything that happened at Old Trafford. And it's only now it looks like, some of these owners that tried to do the dirty on the fans are starting to come out and going, yeah, we're going to buy him and we're going to buy him and we're going to buy him. And it's like they're kind of damping the fan hatred down, if you like, to try and get them back on side. I think in some respects it will dampen it down a little bit. I think in other respects the fans have gone too far and I don't know whether some of them you can pull back in at this stage. They're just devastated at the way, especially if you look at United. I mean, they've gone so far now. Even if United came out this week and said, yeah, we're signing Sancho and we're signing whoever else, and Cavani is re-signed and blah, 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 blah. The fans still want them gone, and I think it's deep-rooted now at this stage. Whereas I think for our own owners, John Henry and FSG, if they do bring in a couple of nice signings, we'll kind of go, well, let's see. You know what I mean? So I think it's a kind of a mixture going on at the moment. Let's have a look. I mean, news broke there the other day that Everton were going to table a bid for Philip Coutinho, 35 million. First of all, I don't know where they got the 35 million from. And two, you'd hardly see Philip Coutinho going to Everton, would you?
No, it's that came out like kind of the far left. Like it was just Everton have got money, I suppose, but Coutinho's name just coming into the pot. That was lit. That's just so out of blue, so random. I do understand that there's a couple of Brazilians there, Bernard and Richarlison, and you have that little link. But I was going to say no disrespect to Everton, but all disrespect to Everton. I think Coutinho is a bit too good to go and play Europa League. You know what I mean? If they get Europa League, let's face it, this Everton are having the best season since 1995. Yet they're still behind Liverpool, who are having their worst season in probably how many years? You know what I mean?
80 and 95.
Since the club was founded. But, I found that quite strange. Look, it is silly season. You're going to have Liverpool are probably linked with every player that has a pair of football boots in world football at the moment. Man United kind of have their 11 or 12 targets. Plus, you've got the players who are there at the moment that they're trying to convince to stay. City's being very quiet at the moment because, let's look at their bench last night was 475 million. Do they really? I know Aguero's going to leave, but do they really need anyone massive to come in? I don't think so. Chelsea are going to go all out again this summer. I think a lot depends on Everton where they finish in the table, and at the moment they could still finish 9th or 10th. So I wouldn't be taking much notice of Coutinho and going to Everton. I honestly don't see it happening personally.
It's safe to say though, in terms of Everton, I mean, they have made some shrewd signings in the last few years and they have upped their game. They have come back into the mix somewhat in that sort of next tier down. And the signing of a player like Coutinho could push them onto that next level slightly with one or two other signage. James Rodriguez is in there, Richarlison. They have got a decent pool of players there. And Digne at the back is unbelievable. So you're sort of thinking, and sometimes the way these signings happen is they do come out of the blue. There's no talk and boom, there they are holding the jersey or the scarf, But it'd be kind of like, I suppose the way things ended with Liverpool as well, there's no reason for them to feel any sort of, loyalty somewhat. It was a contrived kind of move in the end, wasn't it, when you think about it?
There is no, he isn't controlled to feel any loyalty, but I do get the feeling that he is one of those players that if United or Everton, now if you went to Chelsea or if you went to Arsenal or if you went to Spurs, I don't think anybody really bat an eyelid, but I do get the feeling that he wouldn't go to Everton or United. Both teams were linked with him. Everton are linked with him. United were linked with him. You know, we always say like for the South American players, like Suarez, like Coutinho, you're playing your football in England and you are setting a high standard. If Barcelona or Real Madrid come in, what pissed me off was the way he wanted it. You know what I mean? It wasn't a case of I'm all for the short until I leave. It was basically I'm down in tools, feigning injury. That sort of thing doesn't, as well as I do, especially with Liverpool fans. That sort of thing doesn't fucking bode well at all.
Yeah, I suppose, like, when you think about how, the fan base react to, say, the likes of Michael Owen, who, probably in his time at Liverpool did a lot more than what Philip Coutinho did. And I would suggest, I don't know where people would care enough. I suppose they'd be concerned insofar as the neighbours are building a bit of a squad, and they're starting to come back into that mix again. But I don't know whether they'd hold it like the grudge we hold for Michael Owen at times because he went to United and stuff like that and all. I just think it'd be a different kind of thing at the moment, Again, I don't see him going there. And as you said, it did come out of left from nowhere, but that was the talk, Let's move on. Spurs is an interesting one. They're still trying to hunt down a manager. Obviously, they didn't get Ten Hag. He was their number one target, and obviously didn't get them. I think he re-signed again a new deal with Ajax. So they must have been disappointed in that, but they've been touting a number of names. And it's gonna be difficult for them. There's not that many world-class managers out there that you could bring in. When you think about it, the names that are available. Obviously, I mean, you could bring in, the likes of a Gus Hiddink or something like that for a year or whatever it is to pad something out. But I think Spurs are looking now to launch what you would call a project. So they need to bring in the right man, but they also need to bring in the right man that's going to attract in the right caliber of player as well. And it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot out there for them, or a whole lot out there willing to make that move to Spurs.
No, definitely not. I think that the first three managers that they had, the Nagelsmann, Ten Hag, and can't think of the other name, were all three have already, they've either taken up different ventures or they've just said no. So the problem with Spurs is after the Champions League final with Liverpool, everyone thought this is the start of something for Spurs. Within 6 months, Pochettino was gone. That whole project is just broken down. They bring in Mourinho then and just brings the vibe, the atmosphere. He's coming out publicly and saying players aren't trying X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. Whoever's linked with that job is like a lot of managers out there. As soon as a Premier League job becomes available, especially with a team of that, Spurs aren't a small club, let's be real, of that stature, they jump at it with two hands. You look at what City have built and what they will continue to build. You look at what Chelsea are going to continue to build because they've got so much money in reserve after the transfer ban. Liverpool are going to strengthen in the summer. And let's be real, as much as we want Champions League football, if Liverpool don't get Champions League football, Klopp will take the Europa League seriously. But let's be real, he's going to go all out for that Premier League title. He's not going to be playing his full strength 11 every Thursday night. He's going to bring in squad players. This is a perfect opportunity. I'd love to be playing Champions League football next year. I've kind of resigned to not playing Champions League football. But you've got the likes of Curtis Jones. You've got Muszkalowski coming through. You've got Paul Glatzel and all. These are all serious talents. And Liverpool not getting Champions League football next season is the perfect opportunity to give these lads first team football. The mix of you've got your starting 11, but let's be real, Klopp isn't going to play his full 11 in the Europa League, so it's a perfect opportunity to bleed these lads in. I can see Harry Wilson staying in the summer now. I genuinely can see Harry Wilson staying in the summer now if we don't get Champions League football. Klopp will be shrewd. Michael Edwards will be shrewd. We'll go out and we'll buy the right players and all. But Liverpool not getting Champions League football, and I'm not making excuses, and I'm not trying to paint the golden picture of not finishing in top four. Next season could be what Liverpool needs after the season that we've had. That's why I've been thinking about it the last few weeks, you know. But as I said, you're looking at the projects that are being built. I don't think anybody wants to touch Arsenal or Spurs because I can't see Arteta staying there too much longer. That's just failing miserably. He was brought in there because he was Pep Guardiola's right-hand man, and people thought he'd been watching Pep for so long that he's going to come in here at Arsenal and it's going to be the exact same way. When realistically, he was the wrong man for the job. There was too much expectation put on his head. Aubameyang should never have got the deal that he wanted. He should have been sold and the money reinvested because they're going to risk now. Someone's going to come in with mad money for your man Smith Rowe. People are going to be looking at your man Saka. You know, your man Balogun, they've given him a new deal. Like, if he's not in that team by January, because I'd say he's been given the false promises like a lot of players nowadays if they're showing any sort of qualities. If he's not in that team by January, he's just got a new deal. If he pushes out, Arsenal get more money for him. That's the way it is nowadays. It's just a whole thing, a revolving door of how much money you can get in. But going back to Spurs, like, they're in a seriously bad predicament because there's talk now today that United are putting together a bid to sign Harry Kane for 90 million. Bale does have the option of staying for another year. I honestly don't see that happening.
It'd be madness really if he didn't stay, wouldn't it? Because it is the perfect place for him to ploy his trade. Because if he goes back to Spain, he's just going to become a spectator again, isn't he?
See, Spurs don't have a big enough or a strong enough squad. I was looking at their squad for that final against Man City. You know, they have got decent players there, but if they do anything, they should be going all out to try and if Harry Kane and Gareth Bale were to stay there, keep the suitors away from Son Min. You know, you've got Lucas there. You've got Dele Alli. Dele Alli isn't a bad player, you know. If a good manager comes in, puts his arm around him, like look at a lot of players at Liverpool before Klopp came in. You need someone with that aura who can come in and be like a father figure, but at the same time keep the distance. You know, put the arm around these players. Dele Alli isn't a bad player. If he can get back to that form that he showed 3 or 4 years ago, Spurs need at least 6 players and they need a settled 11 because, as Graham said the other night, they don't play the same 11. They certainly don't play the same back four. They need to get a manager who's set in his ways, who's going to come in, who's going to play 3 at the back, a 4 at the back, a 5 at the back, or whatever. But that's the way it is. You can't keep changing things and going from a negative approach to the following week going out and hammering Sheffield United. You need someone who's going to come in, set in his ways, and that's how it is. But the problem with Spurs is until they get a manager, they can't move forward, and nobody wants the job.
Yeah, it's a difficult one for them, and it's a pity as well. Like, with such infrastructure and the money they've spent on the stadium is outstanding and everything and all. So you would think that it would be, you know, someone out there would take that opportunity with both hands, you know. And obviously, Levy would have to obviously promise the manager coming in that there would be maybe 100, 150 million there to spend as well, especially the proceeds if Kane does go or whatever, you know, that he'd have to guarantee them at least, you know what I mean? Because it's
they can't really set their standards or their expectations too high on the name they bring in as well. Obviously, Nagelsmann, like I said it before with Klopp, like if Klopp was to go sooner rather than later, I would have been looking at the likes of Nagelsmann or what's your man? I can't pronounce the name.
Ragnick.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
One of those two. Spurs need to, like, Paulo Fonseca, who's leaving Roma at the end of the season. What about someone like that? You know what I mean? He plays an attacking style of football. Let's not forget, Roma have been, like, they've been hampered with, like, Roma are a decent side. They've been hampered with injuries all year. Now, they were never going to win Serie A, but the guy that's at Porto, I can't think of his name. I know he's been around a lot of clubs, but like these are guys that they've got to be looking at. You know what I mean? Like that European flavour, because if they set the standards so high, that's going to cause more of an unrest with the supporters. You know, they obviously wanted Nagelsmann. it's done now. You've got to move on. But let's be real, they're not going to get top four. They might not get Europa League, so they've got to kind of lower their standards. There are good managers out there, but the longer they leave it, the more the unrest kind of kicks up.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us the latest on Cavani at United. When we last looked at it, he was kind of balancing it whether he would or he wouldn't, whether he wanted to spend another year in England playing with United or go back to Boca Juniors, I think it is, in the South America. I'm not too sure what's the latest. It looks like now he's going to re-sign, doesn't it?
Yeah, Fabrizio Romano 25 minutes ago came out and said that he's on the verge of agreeing to stay at Man United for one more season. I see it as a good move for him. His game time is being managed. He was out of football for a long time before he went to United. Now, he's been an outstanding signing. You can see that class in him when he plays. He gets into places where Rashford and Greenwood don't necessarily get into. He's not afraid to throw his head at a ball. He'd be like that Irish legend Paul McShane. It's head before foot every single time. Yes, I see a good move. I think he's too young to move back to the Argentine or the Uruguayan scene and kind of play out his days, being adored. You've still got at least 2 years left in you. Why not do it on the biggest stage? So I can see that happening. The one worry I would have, though, is if he stayed and Harry Kane signed for United, that's a formidable. They're not going to play together every week, but who do you want to face? We don't want to face neither. Harry Kane and Cavani. He's a serious threat, whether it be in the air or in the ground. So it's an exciting prospect for United fans.
Yeah, I suppose the conundrum there is if he re-signs and if Harry Kane was to come in, what happens to the conundrum then of Rashford, Martial, and Greenwood? It's kind of figuring all that mix out as well.
That's the thing. A lot of people are looking at Man City. A lot of teams that are up near Man City are looking at the way they are. Me and Wayne are having a back and forth on YouTube in the comment section there. But if you're going to be great, Ferguson did it. You have to stockpile great players. It's as simple as that. Look at the Man City bench last night. 475 million, I think. Jurgen Klopp talks about harmony in dressing rooms, and you don't want to cause any unrest in your squad. Great teams are great because they have benches like that. So I think
competition
and healthy competition. It's not like you have a lad coming through who's got all the potential in the world. Other than Martial, well, I know he gets a tough time, but Greenwood is going to be a great player. Rashford is a great player. Harry Kane is Harry Kane, and then Cavani, he's a natural born winner. You want that competition to push you on to the next level.
Yeah. I suppose where I was coming from, that if Cavani re-signs and if Harry Kane was to come in, my gut feeling would tell me that Martial would go, wouldn't he? I don't think I think where Rashford would kind of understand it and he's a United boy, and Greenwood obviously needs to stay there. He's going to flourish into a top player, but he needs to be around players like Harry Kane and Cavani to really make up to, step up to that next level, have that experience around him. Absolutely top player, Was reading there the other day, Bayern Munich have been sniffing around someone that we hold in high regard, Antonio Rudiger from Chelsea, who's been absolutely outstanding this season, and especially under Tuchel. He was kind of nearly the forgotten son under Lampard. Kind of Tuchel comes in and he's back just absolutely amazing. So they're going to try and tie him down. Chelsea are going to try him down with a bumper new contract, and richly and rightly deserved based on his form and his this year. He's been just unbelievable at the back for them, and even you see at times going forward.
Machine,
you know what I mean? He's just
an absolute machine. It's amazing what a new manager can come in and do to a player's confidence and just all around what they can give to the team. Because Lampard came in, was set in his ways. You're not for me. I'm not going to sell you, so you can sit here every week and rock. We were talking about it at start last season when Van Dijk got injured, saying that it's a no-brainer. Rudiger, transfer window passes. He's left to rot in the City or in the Chelsea squad. He plays a couple of cup games, was outstanding in the cup games. Tuchel comes in, first thing he does, Rudiger straight into the team. Chelsea's defence have probably been the best. Well, other than City, Chelsea's defence has probably been the best defence in the league since, and probably Europe since the turn of Christmas. So if I know they're getting rid of Boateng, but then again, going back to Germany, you might have Rudiger saying, it was announced today as well, Xavi Martinez is leaving. He's cover centre half at Munich as well. Your man Jerome Boateng is leaving. He may turn, if he has a good Euros, he may turn around and say, if we go back home now, be adored, closer to my family. So it's kind of in the balance. It could be down to him. He could make the decision. He could say to Tuchel, look, you have plenty of money to spend. I've given you the best of me for the last 6-7 months. I want to go home. It's a win-win for both of us.
I think he'd be mad to leave that current Tuchel project the way it's going at the moment. I can see nothing but success coming their way with Tuchel there. You know what I mean? It just, and to be honest with you, I can't see Bayern matching the Chelsea offer anyway. I just don't think they have that financial clout to be able to match it, to be honest. Another one linked with Everton in the last week, Rabiot. This guy's an interesting one because this guy is a brilliant player, an absolute baller. But no one seems to want him when he goes to where he goes. It's a kind of a weird one. He's constantly always linked with moves. I think he recently, didn't he move to Juventus? He moved to Juventus, didn't he?
He went to Juventus from PSG. He was really highly sought after when he was at PSG. Liverpool were linked with him. Man United were linked with him. Spurs were linked with him. He went to Juventus, seen the opportunity to go there, probably play half the games, win a league title, win an Italian Cup, challenge for the Champions League. I think a lot of it boils down to that attitude. If he was that good, would Juventus be trying to kick him out? Let's be real. I know Juventus are trying to raise the money to get Pogba in the summer, but like when we think about it, realistically, there aren't many teams around now who have the money in the summer. Probably City, probably Chelsea. I know the eye is on City after the financial fair play regulation stuff and all. And Pep's kind of openly came out and said, we don't have the money we used to throw. I don't think Pep, as much as I dislike him, I don't think Pep wants the eye on Man City again if they go out and throw massive money at a striker. I think he'll work with what they have. But going back to Rabiot, I just get the feeling that there's that attitude about him that he probably thinks he's Billy Big Bollocks when he's not. PSG kind of, that's a conveyor belt there. They'll always bring in great players. But to go to Juventus and a year later, they want rid of you. They just think there's something more to it. I think Everton will be a great move for him, though. He'll play every week. The Coutinho move, I don't see as he will fit in there, but who does he not play instead of, or who does he play instead of? Because they've got Calvert-Lewin up front. I know they're probably going to ship out Josh King now in the summer because that hasn't materialised at all since he signed. Well, you've got Richarlison there, you've got James Rodriguez, you've got Bernard there. Rabiot playing behind that attacking forward. I think that's a very, very good move for him. But again, will he go somewhere? He might go somewhere because of the names that are there and who the manager is. But I just don't see that going much further because they're not going to get Champions League football, and he consider himself up there on that pedestal.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we heard Danny Ceballos off Arsenal. Doesn't want to extend the loan, so he's leaving Arsenal anyway. But he's not. Apparently, he's not going back to Madrid either. The talk is that Betis or Atletico might be looking at him. So that's the homes that he's looking for there. So he's on loan at Arsenal, kind of not welcome back at Real Madrid, and told to go find a home somewhere else. Which is probably not surprising, really, when you look at how he's been, really,
He had a good start there, and then it just went downhill massively. I've seen the lads on TalkSport absolutely went through him the other day, saying that they nearly went out and said he was absolutely shit. They didn't paint a good picture of him at all.
Yeah.
I think Ray Parlour was involved in the conversation as well. Him being an ex-Arsenal man, I was thinking that's a bit much, What happened to backing these players that play for your club and all? Like, he's had a bad season. He had a great season last year, I think. That's why they pushed on to keep him for another year. But the lads on Talksport the other day they threw him under the bus. I think
it was mainly it was a reaction to him saying that he wasn't going to stay at Arsenal. You know what I mean? I think the thoughts at Arsenal was they were potentially going to get him to stay, but he came out, adamantly saying, "I'm out of here." So obviously, once that happens again, the media just goes in on it and says, "Oh, really? We'll see about that." Then Jurgen Klopp, PSV striker Daniel Mallon. He's been linked with him in terms of trying to shake up this front line at Liverpool. Haven't seen much about him really, but I believe he's a decent baller, and if Jurgen's looking at him, and in terms of shaking up that front three, it'd want to be a certain caliber of player that'd be coming in to go into that mix really, yeah?
Is that the kind of signing to push us on to the next level? You know what I mean? I hadn't heard much of him at all. I'm just trying to get up his stats here for this season to have a look at them and see how he's getting on. Hold on 1 second.
His stats are good as far as I know. I had a quick look, but I think his stats are good. But, in terms of trying to figure it out, in terms of the Dutch league, it's how it holds up, you know what I mean?
This is it, you're talking about the Dutch league it's not the league it used to be years ago where you had 6 or 7 teams going for, you had PSV, you had Feyenoord, you had Ajax. The standard there has dropped drastically. Ajax aren't as good as they used to be. 5 or 6 of their best players have
left,
have moved on. I'm not really going to comment much on it because I don't really know much of him. But I read a few reports, he's got an eye for goal. He's only a kid still. I don't think the asking price is too much. So if we qualify for Champions League, I'd be probably hoping we'd look to someone bigger, someone kind of more proven. But that's possibly one of the win-wins of only getting Europa League football, is that if you're not getting a massive asking price and he's coming in to replace the likes of Divock Origi, but then get the opportunities in the Europa League instead of the said three up front, is it really a risk? So, it does have its cons. Klopp is probably looking at it because I think we've seen from interviews with Klopp, he's kind of resigned to not getting Champions League football now. So he's probably looking at this and saying it has more pros than cons, and let's be realistic. When we signed Mane, we talked about this a few weeks ago on our first transfer show about Liverpool. When we signed Mane, we all questioned it. When we signed Salah, we all questioned it. He's not stupid. You know what I mean? He does know what he's looking for. A lot of this season is down to fatigue. So if someone with fresh ideas and fresh legs who's an out-and-out striker, which we don't have in the team, I'm all for it. I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
And look, if he signs, yourself as well as I do, I'm gonna support the guy. You know what I mean? He's part of the family, so I'm only gonna support him 110% like I do everybody else. So look, let's see where that goes. We do want to see more of him, which we probably will check out now after this show.
Yeah, we definitely want to see an upgrade to our bench at least. Our bench is really, there's not a lot of options there when they come on when you think about it. The bench needs a proper upgrade at this stage. Word the other day came out about my favourite friend and yours, of course, Lionel Messi. Barcelona putting together a 10-year contract, which was kind of weird. I wasn't quite sure how this worked, but it was definitely 2 years at Barcelona with an option for a third. And then he would go off, I think, and play in the MLS. They had worked out some sort of thing with the MLS that he would go and play there. And then I think the plan was to come back either in an ambassador or a coaching role or something like that. But it was a kind of a 10-year contract or something that they were trying to put together, which was kind of weird, isn't it? It'd be like as if he'd spent 3 more years at Barcelona, and then they would loan him out to the MLS, and then he would come back, but they would still control the whole narrative, if you like, tying them down to a 10-year contract. They just can't let go of him. Sure, they can't.
It's like Newcastle giving Alan Pardew a 7-year contract. It's like Barcelona exists for Lionel Messi, and not Lionel Messi exists for Barcelona. Like, at some stage, they're going to have to realise that this romance with Lionel Messi doesn't last forever. You know what I mean? I'm all for it. I love the story of he wanted to be a footballer. He had the growth problems. They paid for extensive treatment. He's repaid his loyalty 100 times over. Last summer, you know, there's very few players in world football who are one club men. You know, we got Gerrard, we got Carragher. I know Gerrard went on and played in the MLS, but that's to go and enjoy the Los Angeles sunshine. You know what I mean? But it seems so needy and so what would be the word I'd be looking for? Come on, help me out here. It just
it's like you're in a bad relationship with a girl that you can't break up with.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's like we won't let you go. We'll be happy to let you go, I should say, but we don't want anyone else to have you. So it's like if you broke up with a girl and you said, I'm happy enough to break up with you, but you have to remain single for the rest of your life. You can't sleep or see anybody else. Yeah, it's just such a tit for tat, weird sort of relationship back and forward. And like when you think about what he's come out with in the last year, about how he's sick of it and he's done with this and done with that, and he's touting himself out to everyone.
He looks happy now though at Barcelona, you know what I mean? They're still within touching distance of the league. They should have beat Granada. I watched the Granada game the other night. How Granada won that game is beyond me. They should be sitting top of the league. And everyone thought this season, I know they got knocked out of the Champions League. I know they're still only third in La Liga, but they still could win. You know, the way the fixtures are going, I looked at the fixtures, the last 4 or 5 fixtures or whatever. It's actually in Barcelona's favour that they could go and win it. But he looks genuinely happy there. I see the thing with Messi is, regardless of who the manager is, it was never always going to be Rijkaard, and it was never always going to be Pep Guardiola, where he really, really was happy. I think when he's on the pitch, he knows he's boss, and Koeman is an irrelevant thought to him. You know what I mean? That means absolutely, in his mind, he sees Xavi being manager there one day, or he sees someone who he wants to be manager there.
Himself probably.
Exactly. But the whole 10-year deal and all, it just seems so needy. You don't need it. He could be thinking, what is this all about? This is like a stalker. Yeah. Let him, if he finishes at the end of this season, or he finishes at the end of next season, and he goes off to America, everyone naturally believes he's going to be back at Barcelona one day, whether it be as an ambassador, a coach, or manager. The same way we all believe that Steven Gerrard is going to be manager one day. You have to let these guys go. What you said, it's like breaking up with a girlfriend, saying, look, you can go and kiss other people, but if you sleep with someone else, I'm going to kill myself. It's just, that's the way it seems like.
Yeah, it's a madness. I suppose he's happier now because Laporte is after getting back in as presidency, you know. That's a huge move. But yeah, we keep a close eye on it because we know ourselves, we're always very interested in this man and contractual moves, and we never really believe he'll be anywhere else anyway, even when he does eventually make some move. I can't imagine us looking at Lionel Messi in an LA Galaxy jersey. He might go to Beckham actually in Miami. That'd be interesting.
Look, they had the opportunity 5 or 6 years ago to get massive money for them. They didn't foresee that the club was going to take it to them for the worst and not be successful. But as we talked about Liverpool, look how long we were successful for. We weren't successful for 30 years. We got trophies and dribs and drabs. Look at Man City. Have no history. Now all of a sudden they have a few bob, then now they are successful. But if you look at the Premier League now and look at the rest of Europe, look at Juventus. You know, Inter Milan go and win the league there. It's evolution and revolution. Not every team stays at the top forever. You know what I mean? And that's what's happened at Barcelona. Players aged, players left, managers left. It's just, they will be great again. But for now, it's like other teams are having their time.
Yeah. Two other pieces of news that came out in the last week in regard to Chelsea. Varane. Talk of Varane potentially going to Chelsea, which I think would be an interesting move, considering where Chelsea's defence is at the moment. You know, it's not like they need a Varane; they're absolutely outstanding at the moment. But certainly an interesting bolster to the squad without a shadow of a doubt. Probably cost a right few quid. The other one was Lukaku. Talk of Lukaku linked with a move back. Well, what would you think of being Lukaku? I know Inter Milan at the moment have some financial troubles, and you know, congratulations on winning the league and stuff like that with all the turmoil that was going on in the background, and still stay focused to get the job done. Can you imagine Lukaku back in the Premier League with Chelsea?
Yeah, it doesn't bode well for Timo Werner, though, does it?
No.
You know, spent big money on him. I was listening to pundits and I was listening to Chelsea fans talking about Ian actually the other night talking about his unselfishness in front of goal. I'm spending 75 million on a striker and he's not scoring. I'm not happy. I don't give a shit how many times he squares the ball. I want some repayment. You know what I mean? Especially with the name that he came with. You know, he was the next big hot striker in Europe. You see the gifs and the memes going around, like that young lad hanging on top of the net at Old Trafford the other day, texting. They're like, this is what Premier League goalkeepers do when Timo Werner's bearing down on goal at them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's good crack for Liverpool fans and United fans because he's not a striker, but Tuchel's probably looking, and he's came out recently and saying it doesn't help that he's missing these chances. He's probably thinking if I can add a prolific goal scorer, which United were mad. I know Lukaku wanted out United too, but if he's to come in, Chelsea keep that defence locked tight. You know, with the middle like Havertz and Mason Mount, and then you add Lukaku's goals. That's going toe to toe with Man City next year is going to be a frightening prospect. That's the thing I take from most of it is that it doesn't bode well for Timo Werner because I can't imagine he's going to want to sit on the bench, not coming up to the World Cup in January.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting prospect for Chelsea because, you know, they only need one or two signings really to bridge that gap with City, depending on what City do in the market. But I don't know whether City have a lot of business to do. I mean, they basically yeah, go ahead.
Would you take Lukaku at Liverpool?
Do you know something? I like the idea from what I've seen over the last year. And, you know, I would never normally question the strength of the likes of Mane and Salah normally. But this year, they've looked a little bit weak at times in the battle, haven't they? Mane sort of pushed off the ball a bit.
But also very bad in the air as well. Like Lukaku, he's leaned up. Yeah. He's not the fat guy that was at United anymore. His goal scoring record in Serie A is phenomenal. I was only thinking about it earlier on. I was thinking if we could put him up front, you know, and have the likes of Bobby coming off the bench, or else having a front three of Jota, Lukaku, and Salah, or Jota, Lukaku, Bobby, or Lukaku, Mane. You know, you five. The front three we have other than Jota, like we know they're world class. Imagine Lukaku coming in there as well, like and adding 25, 30 goals. That's why I'm saying, talking about your man Donnell Mallon and all, like he's relatively unknown. I think for Liverpool to challenge City, which is going to be a really, really tough job, and then you're going to have Chelsea in the mix as well. I think someone like Lukaku could be the way to go. Like.
Well, I think most people who listen to our podcast know my feelings on a big, strong centre forward. I absolutely adore them. You know, this is the essence of what I think a front nine at times should be. That big, strong man up there who can pick up the ball, hold up the play, power boy lads. You know, and that Didier Drogba feel of it. You know, it's just
Tuchel had that at Dortmund. You know what I mean? Tuchel, them German guys. You know, they're all about the big, strong, tough bastard up front, so that's why he's probably looking at. And maybe he did come out and say that doesn't help that Werner's missing his chances, to probably give him the kick in the arse and say, look, mate, the spotlight is on you. I know it's your first year in England. What are you going to do under pressure next year when there's full stadiums, when your fans are like, they're not happy that you're missing these chances?
Yeah.
So
yeah, the wave of fans there could force Tuchel's hand. You never know. But I mean, Tuchel himself will be ruthless anyway. You know what I mean? I mean, he'll put his arm around you and he'll coax you along like he's done with Havertz. And we've said on the show already that he's absolutely brilliant in terms of his man management. But he'll only go so far where he turns around and goes, "Forget it, pal. It's not going to happen here. You need to move on." You know what I mean?
You need to be ruthless. You need to. If Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had a bit more of a ruthless streak in him, United would push on. I believe if Liverpool had a full strength squad and all this was got like they were still going performing, I think Jurgen, these are the cards he's been given. He can't afford to be ruthless because we don't have other options at the moment. You know what I mean? If we were to have a squad that was like Chelsea have a great squad, they just need one or two players, like we said. Man City's squad is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
If Liverpool had that squad, if the front three were underperforming, well, other than Salah, he still scored 29 goals this year.
Yeah.
But if the two boys were underperforming, he's not going to come out and be like. We know Klopp can be ruthless.
Yeah,
you need that. You need that.
Yeah, the frightening thing next season will be when Tuchel has had 12 months and not just 6 months. Because if they were playing with the form that they're playing with, I think if they had that for a full season, they would be up there challenging Man City. There's no doubt about it. But as always, pleasure as always on the weekly transfer show. Head over to YouTube, Dynamo Podcast Network, the Upper Transfer Show, part of the Upper Tier Podcast, anchor for audio versions of the show. And we'll catch you again next week with all the latest transfer news. Cheers, bud.
Peace.